Big the Cat is... Oh, come on, I'm not even a sentence in yet. Big the Cat is a character from the Sonic the Hedgehog series. He's a gentle giant who loves to fish and will do anything to help out his best friend Froggy. Clearly, he is one of the most vile creations to ever disgrace this mortal coil. Big is arguably the most hated character in the entire Sonic series, and is regularly seen as a contender for the worst video game character of all time. In recent years though, I've seen more and more people start warming up to Big, and he's no longer the lightning rod for hatred that he used to be. But why? Why did people hate Big so much in the first place? What caused this turnaround of public opinion? And better yet, was that initial hatred even warranted in the first place? Today I'll be defending Big the Cat, and we'll find out how this all happened and whether or not Big has enough of a case to sue you all into the ground for defamation. First off, we need to establish why people care so much about an annoying character, and I believe that boils down to how important the cast of characters are to the Sonic series. Now, that may seem like a stupid observation at first. Of course the characters are important, that's what mascot platformers are centered around. You can't have Super Mario without Mario, Kirby without Kirby, or Watergate without Nixon. But compared to those other series, Sonic relies a lot more on its cast of characters, to the point where the new characters are consistently used as selling points for games. Sonic CD features Metal Sonic as the new antagonist. Sonic 2 introduced Tails as a partner that can help you throughout the game. Sonic 3 introduces Knuckles as a new character, to the point where he's literally in the game's title. Sonic Adventure 2 featured Shadow, Sonic Rush featured Blaze, and Sonic Forces featured you! Sonic games thrive on their new additions to the roster in a way that you don't really see from other franchises. And because of that, these new characters can be a major factor in a game's legacy, regardless of quality. Additionally, the Sonic cast is heavily involved in the games, and many stories will involve multiple characters besides just Sonic. Other series like Mario don't have nearly as much involvement from the secondary cast. If you hate Toad, you can just avoid Toad houses, and if you hate Yoshi, you can commit a felony. But if you want to play Sonic Forces without hearing Knuckles talk about the horrors of war, well, that's your fault for wanting to play Sonic Forces. It's safe to say that Sonic's cast of characters plays a huge role in the series' identity, so it's understandable why they're such a major talking point. For better and for worse. So that leads us to Big's big debut, Sonic Adventure. Released in 1998 for the Dreamcast, pretend this is the Dreamcast version, Sonic Adventure was Sonic's first jump into 3D. Except for that one, and that one, and that one. Sonic Adventure featured 6 playable characters, with each of them having their own storyline. For example, Sonic is trying to stop Dr. Eggman from powering up Chaos, whereas Knuckles searches for pieces of the Shattered Master Emerald in order to save his home. Big's story has way lower stakes by comparison. One day, while Big is sleeping, his best friend Froggy the Frog hops away, and Big sets out to find him. Riveting stuff. The story alone is already a pressure point for players. When the other character stories involve stopping a monstrous creature from powering up and destroying the world, it feels like a complete pace breaker just to find a stupid amphibian. Now, to be fair, Froggy does have importance to the story because he ate a Chaos Emerald that Big apparently keeps as a lucky charm. But all it amounts to is Chaos obtaining the emerald, and then Big saves Froggy and escapes. So technically, Big actively made things worse. Okay, I can see why people hate that. Another unique aspect of Sonic Adventure is that each character has a unique gameplay style. Sonic's levels are typical high-speed platforming, while Knuckles' levels are enclosed spaces that are focused on tracking down collectibles. The connecting thread between most of these characters is that they involve platforming in some way, just with different objectives and abilities. But I guess you could say there was one big exception. Big's gameplay is just fishing. No, not platforming with fishing-related abilities. It's literally just fishing. Big's levels are just small enclosed spaces with one or more pools of water, with the goal being to find Froggy and reel him in with your fishing rod. To fish, you simply aim this reticle and cast the line into the water. Then you simply have to move your lure around and try to get Froggy's attention. Just getting Froggy's attention is a bit annoying because you can't just wiggle it back and forth. Big will only make really wide and jarring adjustments, and sometimes he just won't move it in one direction. Like, I get that Big's wider than a semi-truck, but this is ridiculous. And once you actually get a hit, you bear witness to the most infamous part of the entire game, reeling in the fish. It's easy. But to be fair, I don't blame people for struggling with it. When Froggy bites the line, you're supposed to hold down on the analog stick and then reel him in by holding down a button. You have to make sure this meter on the right side doesn't fill up because otherwise your line will break and Froggy will skedaddle on out of there. So in order not to stress the line, you have to move your rod with Froggy's movement. It took me a while to figure out how this worked, but once I did, Big's missions became a breeze. I even beat the last mission within a minute of finding Froggy. Yeah, that's right. They call me Mr. Bass Pro Shop. I can't blame people for getting frustrated though, because the developers did a horrible job explaining the game. Like, it says to watch the fish's movements and adjust the rod accordingly, but it doesn't specify anything more than that, which seems important to do when you're introducing a completely new style. So, okay, the poor instruction of the game mechanics made people frustrated with Big's story. But what about the big boy himself? What could possibly be hateable about this lovable lump? Well, another common complaint about Big is his voice.
Where am I? Froggy?
So a funny fact about Big is that his first appearances were voiced by John St. John, a voice actor known for being the voice of Duke Nukem.
If I wanted to listen to an asshole, I'd have farted.
I just think it's funny that this guy was the voice of both the coolest, most badass, and beloved character in gaming history, and also Duke Nukem. People found Big's voice to be grating to listen to though. His voice tends to be dopey and a bit whiny, and it probably doesn't help that most of his lines are just about Froggy.
Hold on, Froggy, 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 yoo-hoo, Froggy.
Gotta say though, from how much people talk about him, I was surprised to discover that Big rarely speaks during the actual fishing gameplay. From the way people were talking about him, you'd think he was just a waterfall of words. I can totally see why people got annoyed with his voice, but honestly I found it endearing. Sure, most of his dialogue is about Froggy, but that's just because he genuinely loves his friend and is distressed about him leaving. Plus, Big's design just makes any action and expression he makes way funnier than intended. Just look at him holding up Froggy. He's just a jolly fella living his best life. Oh crap, no one told me he could get down and boogie. With that said, I can't pretend like Big's voice isn't a factor into his infamy. Big would still be hated even if his gameplay was exactly like Sonic's. And if someone like Shadow had been introduced with the fishing minigame, I still don't think they would be as hated as Big.
Damn it.
So Big's first appearance was a bit rough, but hey, aren't we all? It's just a part of the learning experience. We all have to go through mediocre, unexplained fishing gameplay before achieving greatness. So surely the next game will be where he makes his mark, right? Right? Transition to the next segment. Big's next appearance wouldn't be until Sonic Heroes, as he was absent from Sonic Adventure 2's roster. He actually does appear in the game, but only as an Easter egg you can find standing around in some levels. Strangely though, Big's cameos were completely cut out of the GameCube port of the game. What, did they think he was too much for players to handle? Sonic Heroes has 4 different trios to play as, with each having a speed, flight, and power type character. Take a guess which one Big is. While all 4 teams have exactly the same gameplay, they'd each have separate storylines and cutscenes. And you can probably see where I'm going with this. The other teams have motivations such as stopping the Egg Fleet from destroying the world, or having to infiltrate Eggman's bases to find secrets. In contrast to this, Froggy is missing, and Big wants to find him.
Froggy.
Oh man, someone get me a seat so I can sit on the edge of it. There's another important aspect to Big in Sonic Heroes. Remember how I said earlier I was surprised Big wasn't constantly talking during gameplay?
My turn. Got it. I can do this. Froggy.
Yep, Sonic Heroes is pretty infamous for the fact that the characters never shut up. They'll spout out a wacky quip or noise for pretty much every single action you make. As you could probably guess, this didn't combine well with Big, who was already being called annoying, and now you have to spend every level just hearing It also didn't help that Team Rose also consists of the 2 other characters that are commonly labeled annoying, those being Cream the Rabbit
Please be more careful with our only clue.
and Amy Rose.
Sonic, this time there's no way out of marrying me.
Though with that said, to my surprise, I once again didn't find Big as annoying as people claim. Yeah, sure, it's annoying to hear the same voice lines over and over again, but Big's lines honestly aren't the type that would get on your nerves. They're mainly just funny little grunts. Big also has some genuinely cute interactions with Team Rose. During their team attack, he balances them on his umbrella, and whenever he's the leader of the pack, he'll even carry them on his shoulders. I can gush about Big all I want here, but at the end of the day, it's still Big the Cat, and people still hate him. So Big now has only had 2 major appearances, with both of them being considered painfully annoying. It's fair to say that this annoyance stuck with a lot of players, and cemented Big into a status of annoying for years to come. But little did people know that when it came to annoyances in the Sonic series, Big was only the tip of the glacier. The mid-2000s to the early 2010s are commonly regarded as the dark ages for the Sonic series, and for good reason. It sucked. The Dark Ages were characterized by games that just weren't up to snuff with the originals, with their quality ranging from mediocre at best to borderline unplayable at its worst. Even games that received praise were also criticized for other aspects that dragged the game down. These games practically destroyed the public perception of Sonic. In fact, the franchise's reputation sunk so low that some people were claiming that the series had never been good in the first place. People started blaming Sonic's roster of friends as a reason for the series' decline. They were called annoying, useless, dumb, ugly, bubonic, and were seen as gimmicks that distracted Sega from the classic gameplay that people loved. And let's be honest, if you're looking for an example of Sonic's friends being annoying and having weird gameplay, Big is the lowest hanging fruit possible. His voice is annoying, his fishing gameplay is frustrating, he keeps blabbering about Froggy, I don't care about his dumb pollywog pal, Big the cat, more like bitch the shat! It didn't help that Big's only 2 appearances in this era were Sonic Colors DS, where he is trying to find Froggy again, and Sonic Chronicles The Dark Brotherhood, which was just a net negative for humanity as a whole. Sega was uncomfortably aware of these complaints. It was stated in 2012 that Big was retired for the time being, which seemed to confirm that Sega was aware of his reputation and was locking him away for everyone's protection. It sucked because all of the hatred towards Big was based on his only 2 major appearances. With so few roles, there was little room to improve and develop his character. Amy was able to evolve from a one-note love-struck archetype to a less annoying character that relied on more than just a single trait. But Big never got that chance because he was never even given a chance. But what if I told you that even during this dark period, Big was not only making regular appearances, but was actually receiving more characterization than the games ever attempted? The comics! Archie's Sonic the Hedgehog comics spanned over 2 decades and nearly 300 individual issues. When you've got that much time and that many pages to fill, it was common for the writers to expand on characters that barely got the spotlight in the games. Big the Cat first appeared in issue 80 during the comics adaptation of Sonic Adventure. Big actually plays an important role in the story and even interacts with the cast a lot, as opposed to the actual game where he speaks to Sonic a total of 2 times. Big is offered to join the gang at the end of the arc, only for Big to decline in favor of fishing with Froggy. More like Big the Goat, am I right? For years after this, Big would only make brief cameos as a background character in a few comics, such as when he's in the background of Bunny and Antoine's wedding. He wouldn't become a mainstay character again until issue 213, which was coincidentally a full decade after his last major appearance. By this point, the comic was being written by Ian Flynn, who's well regarded by fans for his characterization of the comic's cast. So it's no surprise that the way he writes Big is just perfect. Big is shown to be absent-minded and usually oblivious to the threats around him, but at his heart he's a gentle soul who cares for the well-being of his friends. What's nice is that he isn't treated as a joke, and is portrayed as just as useful as the other heroes. For instance, he punches an enemy wolf so hard that he shatters through a stone wall. Big eventually moved into the city with the rest of the cast, and joined Team Freedom to serve as a protector of its civilians. And from that point onwards, Big became a major staple of the series. This, of course, led to even more great moments for Big. One of my favorites is when Metal Sonic is deployed to ravage the city, and Big stands in front of Cream and Vanilla to protect them from the attack. Like, how can you not love that? Big willingly put himself in harm's way in order to protect his friends. You spend all this time insulting and making fun of him when he would die to protect you. Big is the perfect representation of American ideals and values, and I think I speak for the entire nation when I say, God bless Big the Cat. There's one specific moment in the comics that completely changed my opinions of Big when I first read it. As the Freedom Fighters are fighting off a horde of badniks, Silver Sonic rolls into a giant spike ball and charges down towards them. Then Big appears and grabs Silver Sonic with his bare hands, yells, "It's not nice to hurt my friends," and then chucks it into the air to be blown up. This genuinely might be one of my favorite moments in the entire series. It's glorious. Other comics even elaborate on Big's friendly nature. At one point, he's asked about how he feels about Nicole, a computer program who works with the team, and Big replies with, "As long as they're nice, I don't care what anyone is." Awesome, Big is canonically not racist. We can add him to the tier list. The Archie comics gave us more of a glimpse into Big that the games never had a chance to, because, well, the games were focused on being video games first and foremost. The comics solely rely on the characters and their interactions, which gave Big and others more of a chance to finally be established. Big's portrayal in the comics is amazing, and it caused a lot of people, including me, to have much more of an appreciation for him. There weren't many of us, but we existed. We were finally shown the light, and realized maybe Big wasn't as bad as the public was making him out to be. But then at some point in the late 2010s, the unthinkable happened. The public started to like Big the Cat. A major factor to this was the official Sonic Twitter account. Aaron Weber, the manager of the account, has gone on record to say that Big is his favorite character in the series, which in turn led to the Twitter account constantly making references to him. This gave Big the status of a joke character, though instead of the jokes being at his expense, they're more so about the absurdity of him as a character. Kinda like how Waluigi is for the Mario series. This reputation started to change public opinion towards Big, and that was elevated by his first major appearance in years in Team Sonic Racing. A notable difference is that Big is now voiced by Kyle Hebert, a voice actor known for characters like Kakyoin from JoJo and Ryu from Street Fighter. So Big is another cool tough guy to add to the resume. Hebert's version of Big sounds much more gentle than previous appearances, which makes Big's dialogue much more endearing than they are annoying.
I talk to Froggy sometimes when he's not around, and I miss him.
Team Sonic Racing has a lot of talking from the characters, but while most characters will throw one-liners and comebacks at each other, Big just politely excuses himself and assumes other players hitting him is an accident. Like he's just so lovable. And dude, the story mode cutscenes are even better. I mean, first off, I genuinely burst out laughing when I saw how comically large he is. Like, how can you not? But I love his interactions with the other characters and how they demonstrate his friendly and trusting nature. For example, most of the characters are suspicious of Dodonpa, a powerful new character who has invited everyone to the races.
That's a whole nother level of scary tech.
Dodonpa is really cool.
He really is cool, Big. Oh, and get this, all of the characters' cars are stylized after themselves in some way, but Big's? It's just Froggy. So yeah, Big is awesome in Team Sonic Racing, and the best part is that this was just the start of his comeback to the series. Strap in, fellas and fellettes. Next, Big finally returned in a mainline Sonic game with Sonic Frontiers, where he hosts a fishing minigame that No, wait! Not only is the new fishing minigame optional, but it's actually fun this time. It's also great for grinding XP quickly, and Big is just fun to be around. In the animated series Sonic Prime, Big is one of the supporting cast members, and we get to see multiple versions of him from other dimensions. It is surreal to see Big animated so expressively, compared to his usual dead-eyed stare. And then, in Sonic X Shadow Generations, Big appears as an NPC that Shadow can talk to in the hub world. No joke, I popped off when I saw him. Big the Cat is my hero. He even talks about how Gerald Robotnik seems stressed, and said he recommended trying fishing to relax. God, how is he just so awesome? And then there's Sonic Racing Cross Worlds, where Big is not only a part of the starting roster, but was revealed even before characters like SBO and Charmy. This showed that Sega had finally come to terms with their mistakes, and have now accepted Big the Cat as our new overlord. Okay, look, I won't pretend like the hate for Big was completely unwarranted. Yeah, his voice could be annoying, and yeah, the fishing gameplay is just not good. But come on, Big was never bad enough to be considered the worst video game character of all time. He's always been just a gentle giant who loves friends and fishing. It just took people years to see that. Plus, Big's recent appearances have made his annoying traits much more lovable, and yet people still judge him based off the games that came out decades prior. If you still hold a grudge against Big, sure, I can't stop you. But even though you hate him, just remember, Big would love you, and maybe someday you'll be able to love him too.
Hey, I'm getting hungry again.